So I will get started. It's 1 o'clock, and I am talking about interactive work on the compute nodes in this section. So the idea here is to understand what an interactive session is and why you might want one, and also how to work with it. We are not going to go very much into detail, so I'll leave some of it for you to read, but I will also briefly show the GFX launcher and on-demand desktop, just how they work, how to start them up. And then some of my colleagues will show you how to use IDEs on these systems. So when you are developing a Python script, some people might do so line by line. And how would you do that best? Would you do it on the login node, or would you do it with SBatch? And why or why not would you use an interactive node? So the thing is that if you're running something on the login node, as we talked about, if it's heavy, it might cause problems for other people using the login node. But if you are submitting it to SBatch all the time when you are slowly developing something, then each time you have to sit there and wait to get your job to run, and maybe it will sit a long time in the queue, and that's not very useful. I mean, you want to get it done quickly. So then you might want to simply have an interactive job where you can start up Python on a compute node, and so run it there, but be able to not have to wait in the queue each time. So let's look at that, and I'm just going to scroll past these compute allocations and the storage space because it's the same as in the previous section. And well, as I said, I already talked about this. You don't want to sit in queue and in a queue for hours to wait each time you're testing something, and you can't really do it on the login node if it's heavy. So interactive jobs it is for this. And there are several ways of doing this. You can simply run the Python script again and again. And if you are on an interactive node, you can do so immediately. Or maybe you are using Jupyter or Spider or some other IDE. Or maybe you're just starting up Python and working it. Regardless, interactive sessions are the ways to do this as well. And I'm not going to go over this because it is it's possible to use Jupyter, for instance, on all the centers now. And it's fairly easy everywhere because you can either start it through ThinLink or you can start it through some desktop on demand. I don't know the status at UPPMAX now with Pelle, but I'm going to assume it is reasonably easy to run Jupyter there as well. But you'll probably talk about that. So here, let's talk about interactive, salloc and srun, and also the desktop on demands. So what is an interactive session? Well, it's a session that directly accesses a compute node, and that there is no queue before the command is run on the compute node. Again, more info in the cluster hardware section here on the common. So the various clusters in Sweden, they all have different ways of providing for interactive sessions. And here HPC2N stands out in that if you're doing it from the command line, then you are actually remaining on the login node. And when you're running something on the interactive session that you have, then you have to use srun in front of the command. And it's not a real interactiveness. So there are some types of, well, you can't really do if you have a script that is asking you questions or that you have to respond to in any way, then you cannot do that. Then you have to use the desktop on demand instead, which ASP.NET does not. All the others have ways of doing actual interactiveness where you end up on a compute node. PDC can do either. So the command on tetralit is interactive, and there is no other way of doing it. Dardel has salloc, which is the recommended way, and there you either do it like at ASP.NET or you afterwards SSH to your compute node that you now have allocated. At Alvis, well, there is also a GFX launcher through ThinLink on Dardel, which is possible to use. It's just that they don't have a lot of licenses for their ThinLink, so you have to be a bit lucky to get into it. Alvis. There is srun. There's a way of doing interactiveness directly on the terminal, but they strongly recommend using the Open On Demand portal they have. Kebnekaise has salloc, which, as I mentioned, is not true interactivity, and you don't end up on the compute node, and you also cannot SSH to the allocated node. You can, however, use the Open On Demand portal that ASP.NET has set up, and that is true interactivity. Pelle recommends interactive still, I believe. salloc actually didn't work when I tested it, so I think this should be removed. And there's no other way of doing it right now. Cosmos, you can use interactive, and they actually recommend to use the GFX launcher through ThinLink, which is also a desktop on-demand system. And there you also have true interactivity. So let's look at starting an interactive session in the simplest way through the command line. And if you want to, you can tag along. So just make sure you are logged in to the system you want to work on. And right now you only need to do that. So, and you can see here that if you're on tetralit, you do it with this command. And there's an example here. If you do it on Dardel, you use this command. And as always on Dardel, you need to add a partition. And after doing that, you can SSH into that node. I will show you in a moment. Alvis, there is this command here that you can use to get to an get an interactive job on a compute node, and you do end up on the node. Kebnekaise, salloc, you are still on the login node, as you can see after getting the allocation. You have to run with srun. Let's see. Pelle, you use interactive in these commands here, and then Cosmos, again interactive. So I am going to go ahead and do this on tetralit. So I will say interactive, and then I say -a, and it is NAISS 2025 to 934. And then I also need to tell how much time I want. And I only want 10 minutes. You usually probably want a lot more because it's an interactive session. And if I don't say how many CPUs I want, I'll just get one as default. But as you can see, it is already granting the resource here. And I'm now on a node. You could see how it changed. But before it looked like this, the login node is one of the login nodes, tetralit and a number. Now I'm instead, my username is at this node N573 at NSC, and that is a compute node. So let us try and see how it looks on Data. There we use salloc, and we again put the project ID. And we also ask for some time here. And then I'm also saying I want to run in the main partition. I could also have picked shared. So now I got this node here in ID 001089. But as you can see, I am still on the login. But what I will do now is that I will simply SSH to this node here. And then I am on the compute node. You can see it on here. So this works. And there should be an example for each of the systems here, as I showed you. And regardless of which one you're using, you can then log into it. I mean, I can, because UPPMAX is different, I guess I will make an example there. And I will just do salloc. And here I have a different project ID. It's SPC2N 2025 151. And then I also need how much time I need to use. And I believe that is all. And then my job is running. I have allocated a node, namely the node BCN1708. Let's make this a little bit larger. And I'm still on the login node, just like I was on Dardel. I can, however, not SSH to it. I cannot do this. Or rather, I can, because I have admin rights, so I'm not going to do this. But you cannot do that. So what I'm going to do otherwise is that I would have to srun if I did something, and I could say hostname. And if I do that, it reports actually this node that I have the allocation on. Whereas if I just said bin hostname, it reports the host name of the login node, which is where I am at. So anything you run on this compute node, you have to preface with srun for it to run on UPPMAX. The others are true interactivity. Okay, so regardless of this, I mean, you can do this and you can run things there. And if you add a minus y or minus x here to Dardel, you would open an actual session with x11. I would then also have had to do that when I logged into Dardel. And then you would be able to open windows in it. For instance, if you wanted to run Spider or something else. But that is beyond. We'll talk about that. The recommended way to do interactive jobs at Alvis and Cosmos, and now also SPC2N, is to use a desktop on demand, and it's possible on that. And there are more about that in a very short time. I'm just going to scroll down here. As you just saw, the prompt changes when you go from the login node to the compute node, and that is the way to see if you are on the interactive session or not. Or you can simply type the host name as I did here and see where you are. And if you are on SPC2N or PDC, you will get the login node. The others, you will get the compute node. If you're on PDC, you can SSH to the compute node and then have interactivity. So if you want to run a Python script while in the interactive session, you would have to load the Python modules because you're now on a new node. So you would do module load, and we could pick what is suggested here for TED. So I'm just going to take those and load it. And then I have these modules loaded. I'm then also going to load it on Dardel on the compute node. And I'm going to use grade Python 3.11.7. And now I can start Python in both places here, as you can see. And I could then run a script directly. So with this. And I'm going to go into this partition that I don't remember what was called. CFS cleaning, etc., etc. Yes. And here I have the exercises that I had before. And now instead I'm going into the programs directory because there I have these Python scripts and I can now run them directly. So I could run Python and mut, and it will run as it should. So, yeah. And I have also the opportunity to run the script here that needs, I think this one needs argument, but I don't remember. I will see in a moment if it completes. It will ask me for numbers. And this thing here would not work at SPC2N. You could see that quickly here. I still have my allocation. And let's copy this here. Let's need this script very quickly. That module load GCC. They suggest for SPC2, just do that quickly if they suggest it. There's nothing suggested. Okay. Let's go with this. And now I have Python. And now I'm trying to run script I. If I do it this way, it will work because it runs on the login node. If I set srun in front of it and run it on the compute node, nothing happens. And the reason for that is that it's actually asking the question, but it's asking it on the compute node and not reporting that back. So nothing will happen. If I were on that node, it would, but now it's not going to. So there you can see the difference between true interactivity and not real interactivity. And let's see, and that is the example here. And the exercise, which we don't have time for, is why would it not be a good script for interactive? And the answer is that it is, except for SPC2N, because there the questions will be asked on the compute node that you don't have true access to. I'm now going to quickly move to show you the desktop on-demand system. So, as I mentioned, Cosmos, Kebnekaise, Alvis, and Dardel have an opportunity to run some applications through one of a couple of on-demand services. Here you, by the way, saw how it looks when the interactive job finishes because it runs out of time. So it looks like this. You can also escape the interactive bit. Control C, I said. Okay, but you can always go out with exit. Yeah, because it was started, and I will look into it. So Cosmos and Dardel uses the on-demand desktop or that is developed by LUNARC and is accessible via ThinLink. And Kebnekaise and Alvis uses a open on-demand portal, which is portal.spc2n Umeå for Kebnekaise, and Alvis C3SE Chalmers SE for Alvis. And they are the easiest to work with if you need to do something larger, like using Jupyter or MATLAB or various R programs or VS Code, because RStudio, VS Code, things like that, because then you will actually get the graphical interface directly and it will not be slowed down as it might be if you were running it from a command line. So I am going to go ahead and show you here how this works, and I think I'm simply going to start ThinLink. Okay, that is broken. I'm going to find it over here and start the ThinLink client. And Cosmos and Dardel looks the same. So in this case, I'm going to start the one on Dardel because it's put here. So there is a Dardel minus vnc.pdc.kth.se, my username. And on Dardel, as you were shown earlier today, you need to log in using a key. So you set that here on the options, security, and click public key. And that is dot. So I'm going to connect, and it will ask my passphrase. And then it will open ThinLink. And I was lucky, I actually got a license for the ThinLink key. So now I am on Dardel, and I'm going to go here into applications. And here I can choose various things. And I could, for instance, pick Jupyter. And then lab. So I'm going to do that. And then I need to set many of the same things I would set in a job script. It's just that here I write them in a little box here. So I could put them all time. Here it's half an hour. I could pick what I want, how many tasks per node and things like this. I can set how many cores here, and I'm just going to go with the default. And then I need to pick the partition. It's on Dardel. I'm going with the shared partition. It's faster. And then I'm going to pick this project that we have here for the course. And there are other job settings, but I don't think I can set anything here. This is Python modules and things. So now I'm going to click Start. And it should start fairly quickly. It's green here. I'm going to assume that it means it's ready. No, it's waiting for notebook instance to start. Now it's started. Good. And as you can see, I am actually now logged in to a compute node that is running Jupyter Lab at Dardel. And I could click on terminal to see which node I am at. So that works. I am going to quickly move on to show how the portal works, because you will look more at this later. So I'm going to take the portal at HPC2N. That looks like this here. and I log into it, and I give the password. No, I'm going to save that. And there I have some interactive apps, and I can pick a desktop, which will simply give me a desktop on the compute node that I get the allocations on. Or I can pick Jupyter Notebook, MATLAB, RStudio, or VS Code. I'm going with Jupyter. I pick my compute project, how many hours. Here it can be at most 12. I pick the node type, either a CPU, which is what this will give me, or a GPU, or large memory. I'm going to pick the default. Here is 4 cores. I could pick 1 core, many more cores. I could pick GPUs. And then you can create your own runtime environments if you want to. That is, if you want Jupyter with some specific modules already installed. And then you can pick a working directory with select path. And here I'm going to pick this one here, because that is the one for the course. And then I'm going here and selecting that path. So that will put me in my space on the course storage here. And you can also, there's also option here to work with the, let's see where we are here. It is possible to work with the file system here and transfer things and stuff. But now I'm going to launch it. And it will take a little while. You can see here, Jupyter Notebook. I have on one node, I have 4 cores. And this is how long I asked for. And it is starting. And I guess while it is starting, I could do the same on Alvis, as for the simple reason that there's a small difference there. That is that they are using Super to authenticate. So log in using Super, and then I have 2-factor authentication turned on, so I need to put that. And then I authenticate myself. I prove my identity to C3SE. And now I am logged in here. And here you can either pick the interactive apps from this drop-down, or some of them which are pinned, so you can, for instance, click Jupyter. And then it looks mostly the same as an ASP.C2N. You pick the account, how many hours, and the resource. And there are different types of GPUs that you can choose here. And you can also pick CPUs. And you can put your working directory here. So that is the one for this course, my directory, and I select it. And then I launch it. And then it sits here in queue, just like the one here does. And meanwhile, I have got an allocation for ASP.C2N. I'm told on which node. So I connect to Jupyter. And I'm there. And this will do the same in a little while. It's starting now. So, and I think that was what I wanted to say. Let's see, I think these are just walkthrough of what I just did. This, yes. Yes, these are just pictures that are screen capped, or that are screen capped. And you can, of course, also start a terminal inside of this. If you had opened you can use this as terminal, or you can use a desktop instead. Start one of those and do things there. I think that was it, wasn't it? Yes, it was. I